narrative.
I sat there staring at her, waiting for her to realize the weight of what she had just said. Her arms were crossed, her chin tilted up slightly, as if she expected me to crumble under the pressure of her ultimatum. Obey me or forget about intimacy. It wasn't the words themselves that got to me. It was the fact that she genuinely believed this would work, that I would break, beg, or at the very least scramble to prove myself worthy of her affection. That was the moment everything clicked. This wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment argument. This wasn't about a disagreement that escalated too far. This was a pattern, a cycle of control disguised as normal marital conflict, and I had played into it for far too long. I laughed, a genuine, amused laugh, the kind you let out when something is so absurd that it barely feels real. Her eyes widened for a second, caught off guard, but she quickly masked it with a scowl. "What's so funny?" she snapped. I leaned back, letting out the last of my amusement before meeting her gaze. "Perfect. Keep it forever." Silence. She blinked, as if waiting for me to take it back, to explain that I didn't mean it, that I was just angry. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was just done. I stood up, grabbed my phone off the table, and walked out of the room. No yelling, no dramatic storming off. Just a quiet, firm departure. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I didn't care to fight for her understanding or prove why she was wrong. Let her sit with it. Let her realize that this time her tactics wouldn't work. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a pillow and a blanket, and moved to the guest room without a word. No door slamming, no passive-aggressive remarks. Just space. She didn't follow me. Not immediately. She must have assumed I just needed time to cool off, that in an hour or two I'd come back, apologize, and try to smooth things over. Maybe she thought I'd try to make a deal with her, offer some kind of compromise to earn back the intimacy she was withholding. But she had nothing I wanted. I lay down in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, letting the realization settle in. I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was relieved. The next morning I woke up early, feeling lighter than I had in years. There was no tension in my chest, no sinking feeling in my stomach, no pressure to fix what she had broken. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already there, sitting at the table with her arms folded. Her expression was expectant, like she was waiting for me to bring up the night before. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her, completely unfazed. She cleared her throat. "So, are you done acting childish?" I took a sip of my coffee, letting her words hang in the air. Then I smiled. "Yeah, actually, I am." Her eyes narrowed slightly, not understanding. She was waiting for the argument, the plea, the negotiation. None of it came. Instead, I finished my coffee, stood up, and walked away. That was the first crack in her confidence, the first moment she realized that something was different. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of the end. She didn't know what to do with the silence. For years, every fight followed the same script. She'd push, I'd resist, she'd escalate, and I'd eventually cave. Whether it was by apologizing just to end the argument, or by giving her exactly what she wanted to avoid another drawn-out conflict. But this time, I gave her nothing. No reaction, no anger, no desperate attempt to fix things. I simply stopped engaging. I went about my day as if nothing had happened. I left the house without explaining where I was going. I came back without looking for her. I only spoke when necessary, and even then, my words were short, neutral, emotionless. And she hated it. At first, she pretended not to care. She'd roll her eyes when I walked past her without a word. She'd scoff when I ignored her passive-aggressive remarks. But after a couple of days, the axe started to crack. The first real sign of panic came when she tried to test me. I was in the living room scrolling through my phone when she walked in and dropped onto the couch across from me. She didn't speak right away, just sat there, waiting for me to acknowledge her. When I didn't, she sighed dramatically. "So this is how it's gonna be now?" I didn't even look up. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my tone flat. This whole ignoring me thing. You think this is normal?" I finally glanced at her. "I'm not ignoring you." "Oh, really?" Because it sure feels like it. I shrugged. I'm just done wasting energy on useless conversations. Her jaw clenched. Oh, I see. So because you didn't get your way, now you're throwing a tantrum? I actually laughed at that one. A tantrum. I was the calmest I'd ever been. She wasn't used to this. She was used to me trying to fix things, used to me taking responsibility for problems she created. She was used to having the upper hand. But now, she had nothing. The real shift happened later that evening. She was standing by the sink after dinner, waiting for me to say something. I could feel it, her desperation growing. Normally, this would be the moment I'd break, where I'd try to repair the damage and pretend like things could go back to normal. Instead, I grabbed my glass of water, took a sip, and walked out of the kitchen without a word. And that was the moment she finally realized she was no longer in control. The silence between us became normal. It wasn't just a pause in conversation, it was a complete shift in how I approached my life. I had nothing left to say to her, nothing left to fight for. But for the first time in years, I had someone else to focus on, myself. I didn't make a big declaration about it. I didn't sit her down and say, I'm changing my life now. No, I simply started living differently, without her permission, without her validation, and without a single ounce of hesitation. The first thing I did was fix my sleep schedule. For too long, I'd been caught in a cycle of restless nights, lying awake replaying arguments in my head, trying to anticipate the next inevitable conflict. But now, I went to bed early in my own space and woke up feeling clear-headed. Then I started hitting the gym. I signed up at a place nearby, nothing fancy, just a basic place where I could lift, sweat, and rebuild myself from the inside out. That first week was brutal. My body ached in ways I hadn't felt in years. But I welcomed it. Every sore muscle was a reminder that I was making progress, that I was taking back control in a way she couldn't manipulate. She noticed, of course. I could feel her watching when I'd come back from a workout, drenched in sweat, my breathing still heavy. At first, she pretended not to care, but she was always in the background, eyes flicking toward me whenever I grabbed my gym bag or downed a protein shake. I started dressing better too. Not for her, not for anyone else, for me. I threw out old clothes I had held on to for too long and replaced them with things that actually made me feel good. I got a haircut, a real one, not the lazy trim I used to settle for. When I looked in the mirror, I started recognizing myself again. Then I started going out. At first, it was just small things, grabbing a coffee alone, going for walks, reconnecting with friends I had lost touch with over the years. But eventually, I started living again. I said yes to invites I would have declined before, went to bars, met new people, and every time I stepped out that door, I felt a little more free. The more I focused on myself, the less space she took up in my head. And that's when she really started to panic. She was losing her grip on me, and she knew it. At first, she tried to pretend nothing had changed. She acted indifferent, rolling her eyes whenever I left the house, making snide remarks about my gym routine, or scoffing when I walked past her in a crisp new outfit. But I could see it, the way her confidence cracked just a little more each time she realized I wasn't reacting. Then the shift happened. It started small. One night as I walked past her to grab something from the kitchen, she accidentally brushed against me, something she hadn't done in weeks. A few nights later, she lingered at the doorway of my bedroom, the one I had moved into, leaning against the frame as if she had something to say. But she didn't. She just stood there, waiting for me to invite her in. I didn't. Then she escalated. One morning, as I was getting ready to leave for the gym, she spoke up in a tone that was almost soft. You've been spending a lot of time away from home. I finished tying my shoes, grabbed my bag, and looked at her. Yeah, she hesitated. Doing what exactly? I smirked. Living. That hit her. I saw it in the way her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to fire back but couldn't find the words. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She was supposed to be the one in control. She was supposed to be the one making me desperate for her attention, not the other way around. But now she was the one watching me walk out the door, wondering where I was going, what I was doing, and, most importantly, who I was with. The power she once had over me? Gone. She tried to pull me back in the only way she knew how. One night I was in the kitchen when she suddenly leaned against the counter beside me, her fingers tapping idly against the surface. Too casual. Too forced. You know, she started, her voice laced with something dangerously close to desperation. We don't have to keep this up. Things don't have to be like this between us. I didn't answer. I let the silence hang. She shifted closer. I miss you. That was new. I turned my head slightly, meeting her gaze. Miss me, I repeated, as if the concept itself was foreign. She nodded, reaching out to trail her fingers down my arm. The same woman who once held intimacy over my head like a bargaining chip was now trying to give it away for free. I let her touch linger for a second, then I gently pulled my arm away, grabbed my glass of water, and walked out of the room. That was the moment she realized she had lost. She didn't give up easily. After I pulled away from her touch that night, something inside her shifted. The casual indifference she had pretended to have in the beginning was gone. Now she was in full damage control mode. She started trying again. Harder this time. At first it was subtle. She'd linger near me more, acting as if she just happened to be in the same room. She'd accidentally sit closer to me on the couch. She'd ask meaningless questions, pretending to care about my day, when we both knew she never had before. When I didn't bite, she escalated. One evening, as I was getting ready to go out, she leaned against the doorway of my room, not ours anymore, and watched me put on my watch. Are you going out again? I didn't even look at her. Yeah. With who? I smirked to myself as I adjusted my sleeves. Does it matter? That hit her, and I saw it. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the edge of the doorframe. I just think it's strange. You never used to go out this much. I turned to face her, my expression unreadable. Yeah, I never used to do a lot of things. She stared at me for a long moment, waiting for me to say something else, something that would give her hope that I wasn't really slipping away. But I didn't. I grabbed my keys, walked past her, and left without another word. The control she once had over me? It was dead. She must have realized somewhere deep inside that she had lost me. But instead of accepting it, she tried one last desperate move. Guilt. A few days later, I walked into the house to find her sitting at the table, staring down at her hands, waiting for me. I almost walked past her, but before I could, she spoke. Can we talk? I sighed. I knew what this was, but I sat down anyway, resting my hands on the table in front of me. Go ahead. She hesitated, then let out a small, shaky breath. I don't know what's happening between us. I arched a brow. Really? She ignored my tone. I don't want to fight anymore. I tilted my head slightly. This isn't a fight. It's just reality catching up to you. Her eyes flickered with something close to panic. It doesn't have to be like this. We can fix things. I know I haven't been perfect, but stop. She flinched. Not because I had raised my voice, I hadn't, but because I wasn't playing into the script she had rehearsed in her head. I exhaled slowly, leaning back in my chair. You want the truth? She nodded, looking at me like she was clinging to the last possible chance to turn this around. I don't want this anymore. Silence. Her lips parted slightly, as if she was going to protest, but no words came out. I leaned forward, my tone calm. I don't hate you. I don't even care enough to be angry, but I see you for what you are now, and I'm done pretending this marriage is anything more than a cage I let myself live in for too long. Her breathing hitched. So that's it? You're just giving up? I shook my head. No, I'm finally choosing myself. Then I stood up, walked over to the counter, grabbed my phone and dialed a number. When she heard me say the words, I'd like to schedule a consultation for a divorce attorney, she finally broke. But by then, it wasn't my problem anymore. She cried, she pleaded. She tried everything she could to make me change my mind. But it was too late. Once the divorce process started, she flipped between two extremes. Some days she was furious, throwing accusations at me like it would somehow reverse what was happening. Other days, she played the victim, acting as if she was the one being abandoned. Neither approach worked. I had nothing left to give her. The best part? I didn't feel guilty, not even for a second. The old me would have agonized over this, second-guessed himself, wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something left to salvage. But now, I felt nothing but relief. I moved out before the paperwork was finalized, packed my things in silence while she stood in the doorway, watching. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "You're just walking away like I meant nothing to you." I zipped up my suitcase and turned to her, my expression unreadable. "No, I'm walking away because I finally realized I meant nothing to you." She opened her mouth, but I didn't wait for her to respond. I grabbed my bag, walked past her, and left that house, our house, for good. Life after her? It was better than I could have ever imagined. I got my own place, a space that was finally mine. No tension, no manipulation, no walking on eggshells. Just peace. I continued working out, continued dressing better, continued saying yes to new experiences. I met new people, went on dates. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I could, and I thrived. Meanwhile, she didn't. Word got back to me through mutual acquaintances. She wasn't handling the divorce well. She was spiraling, trying to act like she was fine while everyone around her could see that she wasn't. She had spent so long controlling me that she never considered what would happen when I was gone. And now, she was the one drowning in regret. I never looked back. Not once. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to suffer. I didn't even care what she did anymore, because I was free. And that was all that ever mattered. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.